Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. Welcome to your latest episode of the Wolves Fancast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. I am your host today, Gully, and we're coming off the back of a wonderful, consummate, just easy victory down or up at Merseyside. 1-0 over Everton, thanks to a Connor Coady header. And with me today to review that fixture, I've got Rich, Jafo, and Adam. Gentlemen, how's your Sunday going? Jafo, I'll start with you, mate.
Mate, wonderful. Wolves win always puts a nice shine on the weekend. So yeah, can't say I'm any happier, especially beating Lampard as well. After thinking back to that tackle of many years ago, revenge is served ice cold. I think in that case,
a decade on.
Yeah, was it Adam Hamills? Was
the
recipient?
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely got the better end of that deal, haven't we? Lampard, all of his Premier League titles, all that in between. But we've got the 1-0 at Goodison Park, and maybe even a death knell in their relegation bid. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I would like to say, just point out, it didn't quite start on such a happy note, if I'm being brutally honest, guys. We're going to get on to talking about the lineup. And, I mean, show of hands, show of voices. Who was happy with the lineup and who wasn't? At the three of you. I'll start with you, Adam.
Well, I don't know if it wasn't so much as unhappy or happy. It was just confused. I was just a bit confused, to be honest, trying to get his line of thought when it comes to this. So, I mean, first of all, obviously, I've got to caveat this by saying there's a reason why Bruno is manager of a Premier League team in the top half, and I'm here sat talking about it because I wouldn't have done that. And then look at the end result. So he obviously knows what he's doing. But I don't know. Maybe it's because off the back of the Watford game and just thinking, well, that went quite swimmingly, so why don't we just do that again? Essentially, obviously, it's not as simple as that. But I guess it wasn't just the personnel change; it was the formation change as well. I just didn't know what to make of it at the start because it's so drastically different from what we had on Thursday night. As I say, both personnel and formation wise. Obviously, I'm part of the King Kilman club, so I was happy to see him come back in. But I did think that Bolly was fine on Thursday, so I was surprised to see. I was just surprised to see Kilman come back in, and then to go back to the two. Like I say, I just was interested in his line of thinking. To be honest, it wasn't what I would have done, but then what do I know?
Well, Adam, you go and get your coaching badges, and then you'll be absolutely qualified to make whatever comments you feel necessary. Maybe
I'll be back in about 2-3 years then.
Rich, I mean, we went back to the three in midfield. We brought in Marcal at left wing back. I mean, personally speaking, I didn't feel like the two kind of went hand in hand. It felt like a bit too conservative from my perspective. I don't know if you felt the same.
After Watford side, to be playing a team in a relegation scrap, to see us go for what's arguably a more defensive formation with more defensive players. The only thing I could put my finger on in terms of why was just to give some players an extra bit of a rest, and even having Dendoncker in there. Although you're not resting Neves and Moutinho, you've got somebody else doing some extra dog work in the midfield. So it's almost protecting your dynamic duo in Neves and Moutinho by having someone who's doing a extra bit of work in there for them. But it did feel a bit odd seeing it just because we scored 4 3 days before, and it's a struggle to then kind of go to, you know what, we're going to manage this game instead of we're going to go out and win this game. I think that's kind of how it felt. I mean, I know what the general atmosphere was from Wolves fans, because at 2 minutes past 2, I tweeted out the lineup and sort of said, who's happy with it? And within 2 minutes after that, I got about 8 replies sort of saying, happy. Nobody will be happy with this. So I'll just change it quickly to just reply in GIF format. So I feel like at 5 past 2, the general sentiment was this is not going to be an inspired afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, Jaffa, were there any particular choices that baffled you at that point? And did you feel confident going into the game when the lineup was announced?
I mean, I wasn't against. Actually, we were talking about in the preview the other day. We said I wasn't against Ndonka starting, because he always tends to have a really good game against Everton. But if I was going to say, I would have rather Podence played from the start than Hwang, because I think Podence is in a really good vein of form, and to take him out was a bit strange for me. And Ait-Nouri, I'd like to see him play, but I don't know how he can handle that 2 games in such a short period of time.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to. Either Bruno doesn't seem to either trust him, or Ait-Nouri's body doesn't withhold to 290 minutes in a week. But I find it frustrating with if it's burnout, rotation, or however you want to describe it fitness wise. We have got like 5 days until our next game. It's not like we're playing Wednesday. We have got a little bit of a gap, but hey, we've come away with a victory, so I can't really be too judgy on it.
What is it, Rich? We're prisoners of the moment, and at that moment in time, we were all fuming. Yeah. I mean, I certainly was. And I laid my cards out on the table to be shot at, which definitely happened. But I don't know if I can't recall exactly how many times we've seen it before, but the Raul Jimenez and Hwang partnership is something that I feel like Bruno is really trying to put a bit of faith into. We know about that game at Newcastle where they looked up really nicely. We're almost going for a little bit of a, Kane and Son light pound shot version.
Call it what it is. It's Quinn and Phillips.
I'm going to need a little bit of help with that. Oh, Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips. Sorry, I thought there was some totally niche reference that.
Did you think that was some sort of American mid-70s cop show or something?
Right, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
Quinn and Phillips.
You feel like Kev Phillips is like the kind of jovial one, and Niall Quinn's really like, it's moody as hell. I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely. But like they, you can sort of see it in their games, especially as you've noted how many times this season, Goody, that Jimenez likes to drop deep and pick up the ball and get, link up the play. Whereas Hwang isn't great at linking up the play because he's got a 2-yard touch. But if the space is being created behind him and he's got decent players, it works. I think, especially if it's just the 2 of them up top.
Hwang's touch is, as I've said in the group, is similar to my first touch in that his first touch is normally his second touch is usually a header because it's the same.
I was really hoping you wasn't going to go down that other route, which was the first touch of something.
Yeah.
Then Adam, but I'm glad you.
Well, I wouldn't be able to substantiate those claims if I said that. So no.
And we will steer well clear of tarnishing your good name from that respect.
Not a good name.
But
it's a good job we don't have Stu Hall on.
No, Jesus. Anyway, we need a disclaimer at the start of this episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Hwang, as it turned out, didn't really get a chance to show too much. Although the first 20 minutes felt like they were entirely about him and his attempts to kind of shake off that injury, Jafo. I mean, what did you make of that whole scenario? It was bizarre.
It was bizarre. It was almost like I thought there was shithousery going on. I really did. I thought he was just trying to wind the Everton fans up and just trying to create this nasty atmosphere. But yeah, when he did eventually go off, it's like, yeah, fair enough. But his methods to try to stay on the pitch, although admirable, may have been stupid.
I don't think I've ever seen a player apologise for trying to kind of continue a game of football to like an entire stadium, which is. I'm sure you did that, didn't you, Pricey?
Yeah, I've done that many a time, to be honest. But it's quite funny that like it took so long for him to realise that he couldn't continue. I mean, I think it was the second time he come back on or something that he even went for a sprint and in for a tackle with, it must have been the left, must have been Mikalenko, I think, I can't remember. And then it's just dawned on him, was like, I can't do it, whatever it is.
He looked fine for that sprint, didn't he?
Yeah,
like,
that was the thing that got me. It's like he didn't try and sprint and then pull up. He went into it, and then yeah, like you say, it's like, come on, we're on attempt number 3 here to continue with the game. How long is it gonna go on for? And yeah, it was quite funny just to see it go off and both hands up in the air and say, sorry everyone that I'm injured.
Do you think he was just
inconvenienced like this?
Do you think he was just a bit anxious because last weekend Hoover went off injured very early on? It's like, oh god, I don't want that treatment. Just everyone needs to know that I'm trying here.
I definitely warmed up properly, guys. I warmed up.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna bring it up because Bruno mentioned about the fact that injuries in recent games have caused him trouble with regards to the plan he has second half with substitutions and stuff, isn't it? So, I mean, up until that point, the game had kind of been meandering, and essentially that was the most interesting thing that had happened for the first 20 minutes. Like, literally the first 20 minutes passed by, and I was like, have we really played 20 minutes of football here? The ball must have been in play for about 8.
Yeah.
But at that point in the game, Rich, how are you feeling about? Again, we've mentioned Everton are not in the greatest vein of form, and the way that we'd approached the game up until that point.
It was feeling somewhat as a missed opportunity, even at so well at Watford, and numerous times this season, at least since the start of the year, of coming out for traps really well, and that's where we've been successful in a lot of games. And say, considering Everton's form, I didn't quite know why we didn't attempt similar tactics and really just try and catch them off guard straight away. And it seemed like potentially this was the plan all along. And judging by Coady's post-match comments, the game plan was to, ride a potential storm for the first half and wait until Everton got a bit antsy, essentially, and then just kind of essentially just grind through and manage out a draw/win. And it was weird, but the Hwang coming off was almost a little bit of a catalyst for the game slightly turning for one reason or another, really. But for only like 15, 20 minutes in or whatever it was, it felt drab and uninspiring, which isn't really what you want in a football match of, at any level, is it?
No, I mean, Jafar, a lot is made of the Goodison Park atmosphere, and I mean, you hear different claims. I mean, the commentary team on the broadcast that I was watching were quite adamant. I mean, I think they had Leon Osman on, so probably he's going to be quite complimentary, isn't he? But they were quite adamant that the Goodison Park faithful are really buoyant and helpful towards the team. You didn't quite get that impression. The more frustrating the game was, I think.
I think they're very topsy-turvy. Like, they're I don't know, fair weather, I think maybe the right word to use. Because if things are going well at Everton, they're fantastic. They're really behind the team. They're fantastic atmosphere. They're cheering them on. But the moment anything starts to go wrong, the anxiety just builds up in the stadium and builds up. And then everything, they start getting on their backs. That's when the players start making mistakes. And that's almost what felt happened today, is that they were slow in the build-up, Everton. And every time the ball got passed back, you could just hear the crowd just moan and murmur. And I think that's kind of where they are. There's no in-between with them. They're either behind the team or they're just against it. And that's where he doesn't help the team.
It was interesting because before the game, I was in the car on TalkSport saying what you should do at Goodison Park is, first thing you should do as an away team is just completely dull the atmosphere because they will start to get antsy. And I sort of was wondering, well, is that the same for all grounds? Was there just certain grounds? Do you know
I
what
think
I mean?
essentially it is. I mean, we've all been at Molineux a few times this season where there has been a bit of a murmur in the crowd that we aren't necessarily moving the ball forward quickly enough, or there's just not enough intensity in our play. And you always hear that they're usually the same old suspects who are in unison. But once there's enough of them, essentially there's a baying crowd waiting to kind of feast on the nerves of a player. And you could see, Adam, I don't know if you noticed it, watching Everton in possession was quite torturous, really. If you're an Everton fan, I can assume.
I think Everton fans are crap, to be honest. The amount of times I've put their games on the telly, and I've said this before on podcast before, and I have to keep checking the remote to see if I've actually muted the telly because they don't say anything. They just seem like a horror. They just don't seem like they really get behind the team at all. I can't remember what they were like when they used to be in like the top 6 or top 7 of the league. So I can't recall. But recently, I know things haven't been going well for them. You know, as a club, top to bottom, over the last couple of years. But whenever I watch them, they're going there just to vent, and they're all just sitting in an apathetic silence. I really don't see their fan base as supportive at the minute. But like I say, I know that they're not a well-run club, and they've got their issues, and maybe that's what's coming out in the fans. But yeah, I don't really think they're really much help at the moment, as much as they can be, given how badly run the club is at the moment.
Yeah, but again, having watched the game and watched them, seeing them get on the players' backs and the level of quality in the game itself being so bad. I mean, at half time, you'll see what I'm doing here now, but were you quite frustrated about the way that we'd kind of not really laid a glove on them up until that point? Because it felt like they were there for the taking, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, their football hasn't really picked up since Lampard took over from Rafa, whose football we all know how he sets up a team and how he plays. And I think kind of we weren't in. People who had this view weren't in the minority, I suspect, when we'd say that we should be doing better against this team. And then obviously we would go back and reference the lineup and the changes and go, well, I'm not sure if this was the right call, given the fact that, we've had, one real attempt on target, and that was probably Jimenez's acrobats, his overhead kick at that point. And we're thinking, well, is the decisions gonna come back to bite us in the fact that we're not going to get what we think we can get out of this game? And like you say, Gully, we haven't made Pickford work. We haven't laid a glove, and we really should be. Especially given how we were on Thursday night. So at that point in time, I was thinking, well, something needs to change here, and we need to up our tempo.
Yeah, well, obviously, Bruno Lage got them in at half time, and whether he sent a rocket or he was quite happy with the way the game had gone, I think his comments after the game would suggest that he was quite content with the idea that we were just going to contain, frustrate the living hell out of the Goodison Park crowd, and really just kind of show Everton for what they were, which is a pretty bad team at the moment. And lo and behold, we come out second half all guns blazing, didn't we, Rich?
Yeah, it was exactly what we needed, and it's hard to kind of tell, isn't it, what the cause was? Because again, a little trait with Wolves I've noticed is we, again, found it frustrating. We didn't do it in the first half, but we did against Arsenal, where we came out really quickly from the interval as well. I mean, it was exactly what we need in terms of Coady scoring.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk through the goal, but the latest kind of reincarnation of Ruben Neves. Jafo is clearly a flying right winger at the moment, isn't it?
He's incredible. How he beat those two players and just skipped past them and got the ball in was incredible. But the one thing that Neves has done this season, which is really important, is he's playing that little bit further, that 10 yards further. And he's trying to get in and around the box. He's making runs into the box now. And that's where, he's been able to use his powers a bit more, because there's no point in him shooting from 40 yards every 5 minutes. He's a very good footballer. He's got fantastic technique, so utilise him in the right area. And that's why I say he's got more. I don't know how many, I think he might have 4 goals this season and a few, 2 or 3. So he's up there and he's getting numbers that he deserves from the position that he's playing in.
One thing I found interesting with, I guess, is his involvement in the goal was that touch he had to almost set himself up, because it was similar to his one against Watford in terms of giving him that extra space. And I remember when the first time we played Everton, when we came back up and we drew 2-2, and him never having quite the amount of time and space that we'd seen him have the year before in the Championship. And it seems like that's the big thing this year, is he's finding himself in more space in dangerous areas. Like, to have that time and the touch to kind of give himself that opportunity before, turning to David Beckham, it just shows how much he's progressed as a player recently.
Yeah, totally. I think he's not necessarily any quicker than he was or anything, but I just think he knows how to use his physical attributes in a much better way these days. And that cross, I don't see him necessarily putting that cross in to that quality. Previously, he'd pick the ball up in that kind of space where likes of De Bruyne or Trent kind of operate, try and whip a ball in previously, and he's not necessarily produced, but I think he's worked on it quite a bit, which is a really important part of the game. And I've lost count of how many times we've had a free kick or a corner, the ball's come out, and then we've created a goal off the back of it. You've got Saiss's winner at Brighton was very similar. Villa, I think both of the goals, both the first two, were second phase set pieces, as they like to call it. So it's a good work from Tony Roberts again. Yeah.
I was going to say they really pride themselves on that, and I watched the Neves video for his 200th game thing that he did with Dave Edwards, and sort of they're talking about the Derby goal, and so he always wants to make sure he's got a couple of options, and they're really keen, it seems, to just make sure that they recycle it and they get there first, and it just stays alive that bit longer. And it seems really silly, doesn't it? Because it's such a simple way of getting an extra goal, just staying alert and having another pop and making sure you've got someone like Neves to just get in a more profitable position, because he's got the quality to basically do whatever he wants on a football pitch. So why not get him where he can pick up some really good loose ends?
Yeah, I guess the luxury is having someone like Neves to take advantage of those situations. I guess not everybody has that luxury, do they, within the Premier League? And we are eking every last drop of productivity out of those set pieces, which is great. But Adam, I mean, finish and a half from Connor Coady, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just? I mean, what a person to get it as well. The Liverpool lad.
He's going to have been sent to me. He's going to be sent some WhatsApps this afternoon, Annie.
Yeah, I think they said on comms that his uncle's a blue, so he'll be probably getting quite a few choice WhatsApps off him. But as has been said, the setup was masterful. The initial dummy from Neves and the cross itself. Such a good header, though. Because, I mean, when you think he's facing onto the ball, and he must only have a small target in which that it's feasible to score from, and he's nailed it. Amazing. And you think all these years, Coady would not be seen anywhere near an opposition penalty area. We've always had him just staying back and mopping up. And it's only towards the end of last season and mainly this season where he's gone up for set pieces. And he's got a few goals now, not just for us, just for England as well. He got that one at Wembley. And you're thinking, well, this is something we could have tapped into a long time ago, potentially, of sending him up for set pieces.
Yeah.
Especially when you can pull something out of the bag like that.
Well, I don't know if this is complimentary to Coady or quite a damning indictment on us as a club at the moment. He's our 5th joint top scorer with 3 goals. He and Romain Saiss tied with 3.
We just spread him the love.
That's it.
Points per goal, points per goal stat still must be up there.
Exceptional.
The best of them.
We ruined it with that 4-0 at Watford a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Why did we have to go and score 4, guys? Hey-ho. I guess from that point on, it was just a masterclass in controlling a football match, wasn't it, Jafo? I mean, I struggle to recall Everton regaining possession in a good position in the pitch at all.
Yeah, we controlled the tempo. We controlled the game was ours. Everton did not take control of the match at all. I thought Decore had a really bad game for them. Normally he's one who dictates the play, but there was nothing. They showed no intensity from the front. They weren't pressing as they would be. And the only time that I thought that they looked dangerous is when they were putting the through balls over the top to Richarlison, and Richarlison was trying to run in behind, but they could, because I think maybe because we were holding a high line, but they couldn't time it right and they couldn't create the chances. But that was the only place I could see Everton scoring today.
Yeah, I think the offside trap was working quite nicely, and Jose Saiss was sweeping up really well. I think there was one where Richarlison, they carried the play on. He was flagged offside eventually, but Saiss came out and palmed it away really, really well off his toe as he got into the box, which is a really nice interception from him. But I guess that frustration of not being able to get the ball back off us leads to John Joe Kenny's 2 yellow cards. Rich, I mean, what do you make of that situation?
I was trying to find the right way of describing it because it was 3 minutes in between each card, something.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah,
and it's one of those where I don't think there's many excuses in terms of like, are they both bookings? Yeah. From an Everton perspective, considering they're in that position, I don't think he's a world beater or whatever, but it's just indicative of the team they are at the moment. It's just that bit of frustration, that bit of hot-headedness, that bit of ill-discipline that separates a good team and a bad team.
Yeah, it's up there with the stupidity of Martinelli in the Arsenal game.
Yeah,
it really is. He has no right to try and win that ball that second time. And Lampard is going to be furious with him. He's going to chew him out in the dressing room because he should not be doing that on a yellow card because they're still in the game at 1-0.
Yeah.
And they kind of just waved the white flag then. That was it.
Yeah, because I think if he'd have stayed on for those last 12 minutes, whatever it was, I still think we'd have won the game and seen it out just, comfortably. But you want to give your team all the options you can do. And yeah, I'd be furious if I was an Everton fan. Problem is, they've got a lot to be annoyed about. So it's like, where does that sit in terms of what you'd criticise Everton for today? Because the passing was crap, the defending weren't great, the chances were bang average.
I think
that gets a sending off to bookings.
But and they spoke about this on the commentary again that I was listening to, and there's kind of a glorification of these big tackles and trying to get the crowd going off the back of it and things. And I mean, I think Leon Osman mentioned Phil Neville going in on Cristiano Ronaldo saved his Everton career or something like that. And it's very much a British thing, I think. This kind of heroism and really trying to get stuck in. And I feel like it's kind of at odds with the game that we're watching these days, isn't it? A bit, Adam. We're not really encouraged to go out and make these kind of challenges because you're going to get pulled up on them.
Yeah, it's exactly kind of what Rich said. It's just he's lost his head there for a second. There's no need to make the tackle. I think, as you said on co-coms, Leon Osman said he could let him win that, let Raul win it there. There's no danger. There's no immediate danger to Everton. He hasn't stopped a promising counter-attack of ours where it's likely that we're going to get a shot off. It's in the middle of the pitch, isn't it? just in the middle of the park. There's no real danger on. So it was silly. I don't think it would have materially affected the outcome of the game, but as I said, it just makes it ever so harder for Everton to make something out of the game. And I think the fans are expecting that they've gone into half time 0-0. I'm thinking, with the home team, we should be pushing on there and making Wolves work. And it went completely the opposite way. We grew in strength in the game, second half. Obviously got the goal. And then after that, we just managed it quite well. And you can tell the Everton fans are getting frustrated. I mean, I was looking at the table now. It was a bad weekend, bad day for them today, should I say, what with Leeds and Watford winning. So they're only out of the drop zone on goal difference, albeit they've got, 3 games extra. But in their current run of form, they're going to be right in the mire at the minute, because I can't seem to buy a result at the minute.
You could honestly, they've got the worst run of fixtures of any of the teams down there as well. I think you couldn't have drawn a worse run of fixtures out than they've got from what I've seen.
That just shows how badly they've been mismanaged. They're down there. It is hilarious though that they are down there. I've got to say that.
You got to look at who they bought, who Benitez bought. I mean, I think he spent a really good amount of money on Michaelenko, and I mean, really, he's nothing. He's done nothing since he's been in the league.
He's a downgrade on Luka Dean, like bottom line.
100%.
Yeah. I think it's a lad I work with. He's an Everton fan, and he's made the point is that there's such a bit of a mismatch. I mean, their squad is full of players from the last 5 managers or something. It's something ridiculous like that. They've not had a certain steady philosophy. They've just picked different managers as they've gone along. So they've gone from a Koeman to an Ancelotti, to a Benitez, to a Lampard. The money they've spent to get worse is ridiculous, isn't it? When you think
it's almost
millions.
It's almost impressive. Spend that much and come out worse. It's like for producers. It's almost impressive to do that.
Well, like you see sometimes, like we in the past have said, like, oh, we're crying out for players, we need players. And then you've got Everton, who had that summer where they went out and bought 3 number 10s, didn't they?
Yeah.
3 players, exactly the same type. And then they're scratching and thinking, how do we play these now?
And then still had a different one start that came onto the pitch today in Dele Alli. So,
I mean, like, just look at that back 3 of Kenny, Holgate, and Godfrey.
That's the most uninspiring back 3 I've seen Everton play in a long time. No, Yeremina. I know Michael Keane's out of form, but no Michael Keane. Them 3, they look crap. And,
when you include Coleman and Moilenko as well, you just go. You can see that's why they're in the position they're in.
Talking about that defence and talking about how bad Everton were, I did just want to point out the fact that we only managed to score 1 goal. Today, and I think it's worth picking up on the way that we're attacking teams. And welcome into my world, guys. A little bit of GTA for the podcast, but if you do flash that up, please, Rich.
Take on this first.
We're obviously kind of operating in a post-Adama Traore world at the moment, and the sight of us, our wingers flying past people, isn't quite as prevalent as it used to be. And you can see here the greens indicate the completed take-ons and the orange unsuccessful ones. And as we approach the box, you can see that we're struggling to get past defenders. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit tighter in there and a bit more bodies to beat. But if you just move it on to the next graphic as well. So this is attacking third passes for Wolves against Everton. You can see a lot going on onto the flanks, a heavy amount of passes out towards Johnny and back into the centre. But when you look at around the penalty area, it's a little bit of a dearth of activity, really, just because I think we're lacking a little bit in terms of maybe beating a player and getting a cut back in, or just around the penalty area, playing a bit safe. I mean, Adam, I don't know if you feel like we're lacking a little bit at the moment, still in the final third, despite the good display, the control we displayed in midfield.
Well, I think today, when I'll pick out one player in particular. The player that I love actually, much like you, Gully, Pedence. So we know what he gives us. We know how skillful he is, how tricky he can be. I think today, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think too much came off for him today from in an attacking sense. He tried to take, and I know he attempted quite a lot of dribbles, and I'm not sure how many of those stats he brought up there were probably reference to him, but I think he had quite a lot of incomplete take-ons or dribbles. I noticed that he was getting a bit petulant in places today, and we know that can happen with him, but I felt it was kind of amplified today. But I'm sure that it's a one-off for him, really. I felt my abiding memory coming away from that game thinking was, I don't think Pedence shone too much today compared to what he can do normally, what I know he can do. And I know Hwang wasn't on the pitch that much either, but I don't see, in general sense, I don't see him doing well one-on-ones and taking on players. But I think a lot of joy today actually come from Johnny, and I've got to give him a shout out as well because for him to get 90 minutes today, he looks like he's just dropped back into the Johnny of old, doesn't he? He's just sensational, and sometimes it's almost like because we've had Semedo and Ait Nouri, and because Johnny's been out for so long, you kind of think, it'll be interesting to see what happens when he comes back. But he's just come back in, and the door's been opened because of Semedo's injury. And you're like, bloody hell, like this guy's come back in, and he's a minimum 7 out of 10, isn't he? Like the Spanish Dennis Irwin. He's just there. The guy is just incredible. I'm in awe of him for through second bad injury to come back in, and for like the last 3 games and the first start today. And some of those take-ons, I'm sure some of them are down to him because he was really quite good going forward today. I'm so impressed with him.
You're talking about them take-ons. The first graphic really showed probably one of the reasons we struggled, because if you look how deep it is on the left-hand side, I don't think we would have seen that with Ait Nouri playing. I just think Marcal, although he's good at the take-ons and he's been quite successful in the game, he doesn't seem to get into that attacking position that Ait Nouri, because so we ain't getting those balls into the box off that left wing. Johnny did well. He got there, but he was struggling to get the balls across, and there wasn't many crosses today in towards. I know we're not generally good at them, but they weren't getting into the box to roll and stuff like that. And like you said, Gully, it was being passed back, and he was going into that half space for Neves or Moutinho. You had to pick the ball up and recycle. So I think that's the one thing that, when we've got Marcal playing, it kind of hinders the press. And normally, if you type Nouri and Semedo or even Johnny now, is they're almost like they used to be into the Nuno days. They're almost wingers, other than wing backs, and that's what we're kind of losing. And that's what we kind of need is in games like this to kind of kill games off, is to put that pressure on and that aggression, just to try and especially with players like Coleman, who's experienced, but his best days are well behind him now.
Yeah, I think Bruno's talked about Marcal and Ait Nouri as kind of horses for courses, really, as well. He's described Marcal as being someone who he'd pick to have a little bit more control, maybe. And I thought today, while he wasn't necessarily creative, maintained possession really, really well with the rest of the midfield. And likewise, Johnny probably given a little bit more drive down that flank. I actually think, given that the vast majority of his minutes have been as a left wing back for us, I'm surprised at how well he's done as a right wing back, because it didn't strike me as the kind of bloke who's going to burst down the flank and beat people, and he's even coming inside and dribbling past players, and I thought he's just absolutely slotted in with ease. But Rich, any other individual performances you wanted to highlight?
I was going to say, if we truly highlighted Neves, I know we highlighted him for the goal, but just fuck me overall, he was brilliant. I've sort of ran out of words now. And I know we're all hoping, and look, I've been checking Twitter every 5 minutes while we've been recording to see if his contract's been announced on his birthday. And I know what the club will do. It'll be a new site, it'll be a new contract tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, saying sorry for a late birthday present. And we're like, oh, damn you, Wolves. But yeah, I thought he was fantastic. Again, I also thought Donk had a decent game. I thought that, again, we all know he plays better in a 3, but he did what was needed. He played the dunk role. So yeah, I think special shout on him, and also Coady overall as well, because I think even if you take away the goal, he had a solid game along with most. To be honest, no one had an awful game, did they? No, I did the player ratings. To be fair, and it was a bit tricky, to be honest, because some of them I gave Marcal a 7 just because I thought that he didn't do as much as, let's say, Jimenez, but actually everyone had decent games in my opinion overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm questioning what it's going to take to get Neves up to a 9.5 in your eyes, because he was genuinely incredible today. Just when you think about where he's come from and the level that he's operating at right now, he basically ran 3 relatively decent quality Premier League midfielders out of town today, almost on his own. I mean, Moutinho was a lovely supporting act, and as was Dendoncker, but Neves was truly dictating that game. Like, you just saw it. You saw all the passes he was making. You saw the movements that he was making. He even started dribbling around and beating people. And I just every time I watch him now, if you're not going to get close to him, you're in for a hiding, really, from in the middle of the park. And Watford learnt it the other night, and Everton learnt it today.
I mean, he truly is like the poster boy for like Fosun era Wolves, isn't he? He's been there from the start since Nuno come in, and I know the common view is that Moutinho, we've said over the years, has been the finest player to ever wear the shirt, but Neves. I think we'll have to start changing that statement. If this carries on, because at the minute he's, as Bruno has said before, he should be operating at the top of the top, and his form this season, he's just owning that midfield, and he's just bossing games left, right, and centre at the moment. And as you said, good, he's adding different facets to his game as well now that just takes him another level above. And I pray that obviously he's going to leave at some point, and we're going to go into like a week of mourning when he does. But I just think that we need to do everything that we can to try and keep up with his ambitions. He wants to play in Europe, and I think if we were to get into Europe this season, then he would lead to stay with us. I just hope if we fail in getting into Europe, I just think that someone's going to swoop round and see if they can turn his head potentially. But you run out of things to say about him. Really, he's just ridiculous of how commanding and just run games to his tempo that he is at the moment.
Problem is, you say you run out of things to say about him, and then he goes and chips a goalkeeper who's 2 yards off his line, and then Saiss starts whipping him.
Find a new word.
And it's like, oh, you know what? Next week against League, he's going to master doing bicycle kicks. And it's like, oh, me. Just, he's consistently good at improving his game this season. That's the only way I can put it.
Yeah, it's the consistency and the speed of thought that's really come into it. He's very good at what he does, but I think the one thing that I could maybe criticise him in the past is maybe he's a little bit too slow on the ball, maybe. And I think that's one thing that's changed. They transition the ball. Him and Moutinho and Dunk, they're transitioning the ball a lot quicker and trying to stretch the play, like we saw when we first came into the Premier League under Nuno, which was trying to move that ball wide, moving it quick, recycling it as fast as possible. And I think that's one thing, as we got through the Nuno years, it kind of dried up a little bit. And then we're starting to see it under Lager now, is that speed and the tempo to our game. Because when we put 2 or 3 passes together, that's when we look dangerous, and that's when we look like we're going to create chances.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure, the social media team have got another week's worth of content from another Neves Masterclass to squeeze out before our next fixture. So, I mean, I would do a man of the match poll, guys, but I'm making an executive call and just giving it to Ruben anyway. So I'm sure we'll settle on that one.
You've saved just a good 2 minutes there, Goody.
Thank you, I appreciate that. we will leave the Everton game there and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit about our contract expiring stars and what we do about them next season, and answer your Twitter corner questions. Hi all, Gully from Wolves Fancast here, and just like all of you long-suffering Wolves fans, I know exactly what it feels like to be lacking a creative spark here, some outside-of-the-box thinking there, but our sponsors Pixel Yeti Media are here to help. They're a creative agency that cover all of your web design, branding and marketing needs, with our very own WolvesFancast.com, a fine example of their work. So much so that I hear Jeff Shee is looking to do a deal this summer. For now, it's back to the team to ask just where the Diogo Jota money is gone. We may have just had our answer. Welcome back, guys, and we just wanted to do a little bit of debating around the players that are running out of their contracts at the end of this season. We've got the likes of Marcal, Romain Saiss, and João Moutinho, as well as John Ruddy, I assume, as well. I mean, nobody mentions John Ruddy in this conversation, do they? They think he's just going to disappear into thin air or something. Actually, I sit quite close to the bench, and I remember at the Watford game in the week, he came out from half time with like a cup of hot something. I'm not sure what it was, whether it was a coffee or a cup of tea. He came out, he signed a few autographs, had a few selfies with the fans right at the front. I just thought, you know what, he's got a nice life, to be fair. Just watching these players at close quarters with a hot drink and just chilling out like that. Oh,
he's understood the assignment, hasn't he? There,
the life of the keeper.
100%. But well, he's basically done for the season now, isn't he? It's not been in the FA Cup and stuff. So yeah, maybe that's a farewell. Well, I mean, we'll start then. What would you do about John Ruddy, guys? I mean, we all talk about the whole dressing room part he has to play. Jafo, do you think he has a future at the club at all?
I mean, I'd be surprised if they don't offer him a deal, because he's integral to that back room, and he seems to be one of the nicer characters, and everyone seems to get along with him in the back room. But it's getting to a stage now. I want to see one of these young goalkeepers get given a chance and get pulled through in the cup games. You know, we've got the young Norwegian or Danish lad we've got.
Danish, yeah,
Sondergaard. It's people like that. You want to see him get a chance to actually play games, because Ruddy's, he's what, 36, 37 now. He's only going to get worse from now on, and it's just maybe it's time to move on and say give the youth a chance.
Rich, do you offer an olive branch out to John, Big John?
I can see some of the value in keeping him, but unfortunately, not a lot of it's for on the pitch reasons. And I think that's the difficulty with him is that.
Hey. Look, Coady went to the Euros and is basically as a cheerleader, so there's clearly some.
Yeah, and sort of, actually, I think that's really good. And there is a thing in a few football clubs. I can't remember. I think Man United have done it, and also Southampton.
Southampton have done it, yeah.
For the
under 23s, yeah.
Basically, for the under 23s, they've signed like a 31-year-old or however old to basically instill, professionalism in a development squad, so they understand what needs to happen. So I can imagine having someone like John Ruddy about as a quite literal safe pair of hands is really good. However, if it's getting to a point where it's detrimenting the likes of Sodengrad and Lewis Moulton.
Who
have I said? I said Sodengrad. Bloody hell, went all
Sundergaard. Oh, bloody hell! Oh my God! Have we been infiltrated by a Russian cyber hacker?
I've been watching far too much news recently and history docs. But actually, you know what? If he's stopping them developing, and we get minimum 2 games a year where you can roll the dice on another keeper in the league and FA Cup. Ideally, if you're Wolves, you want to, get 6 cup games a season in. And it's either a case of these goalies aren't quite up to it, at which point it's like, well, is John Ruddy of the quality for it then? I'd almost be inclined to keep him for another one more year, just because he also hits the homegrown quota as well.
Yeah, I think the club has struggled with getting some of the lads out on loan to get experience. I mean, Sondergaard is out. He was out at another Danish club earlier in the season where he didn't play too much, and then came back, and now he's at Hereford. So obviously getting some serious experience there, but it's a bit of a difficult situation for any club, and signing goalkeepers, mate. There's a lack of trust there for young ones in particular. But moving on to our sorry, Adam, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a couple of things really. It depends on whether John Ruddy, his age, wants to actually go and play games in his last few years as a professional, versus, does he want to drop? Has he got the appetite to say drop down to a championship team and then play 46 games or nearly 50 games with a cup run? You've got, from the club's point of view, is it easier and cheaper for us to chuck him another 1 year deal than go out and try and find another keeper who would probably be younger. But then you also have these keepers, as I mentioned on the previous podcast, that just like to sit on the bench. These keepers who at some point just accept my career from this point on is to be a sub keeper, and I'll take my handful of cup games. I mean, I'm thinking like, it doesn't. Well, John Ruddy probably won't get this bad, but I'm thinking like your Scott Carsons and Richard Wrights of the world.
Right, yeah.
I was just imagining a future where we're in we've breezed through a first leg of a knockout tie in the Champions League one day, and John Ruddy's still hanging around just for that one appearance because we're 6-0 up from the first leg, and he could just have a nice little time in the Champions League for us one day. Who knows?
I think Stuart Taylor was the one. I think if you look at his record, he's like been professional for like 15 years, and he's played, I don't know, about 50 games or something stupid like that because he's just sat on the bench or been third choice wherever he's gone.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I don't know how they do it, to be honest. Well, I'm sure their bank account says different, but anyway, we'll move on to some of our more prominent players, and one who started the game today, Marcal. Jafar, I'm going to come to you because I know you've shared a few opinions around Marcal recently, and where does he stand with you at the moment?
I mean, I think he's a victim of the where Bruno wants to take the team, and I think maybe the only place I could see him fitting into the squad at the moment, in long term, would be at centre back. And the one game that he's played there this season, he wasn't very good. So I think we had a chat about, me and Rich were talking about it before we started. I think now's the time to pull the trigger on Ryan Giles and have him as the understudy to Aït-Nouri. I just think Marcel's going to be on a decent wage because he's got, like we said about the experience playing for Lyon and playing in the Champions League. He's probably going to be over about 30, 40k. Put Giles in, he's probably going to be on half of that. And it's, somebody who's going to play for the next 15 years, whereas Marcel's probably only got 2 or 3 years left in him. It seems silly to waste time on him instead of, let Aït-Nouri grow and then let Giles be the understudy, play cup games. It doesn't seem like a plan for me. And then there's been reports in the press about probably even going back to Brazil in the summer.
Yeah, I think he was linked to Botafogo, wasn't he? Which feels like a nice way for him to kind of wind down a little bit. He's been in Europe for the majority of his career now and got some really good experience. But I mean, talking of that left centre back slot, which he might be able to fill if we did want to extend. I mean, there was a player on the bench today, Adam Toti Gomez, who would argue the case that maybe he should be given that space to contend for a first team spot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Granted that he's only got 2 games with us to his name, but he was absolutely fine in those 2 games that he played with us. I think with Marcal, I think he will just come to an end in the summer. I think he's already exceeded my expectations this season. The fact that he put more than 3 consecutive games together. So I think I said
We
at the
talked
start.
about. I think we called it at the moment that he was named in the starting lineup, didn't we?
At the start of the season, that was one of my things, that he won't play more than 3 consecutive games. I'm still waiting for a squirrel to go on the pitch as well. That was one of my other predictions at the start of the season. I haven't seen that yet. Time's running out on that one. But Marcel's fine. He's all right. He's just there, isn't he? He's a body in a shirt, essentially. He doesn't do anything groundbreaking as such, apart from normally be injured or get booked. But like I said, the question there on Twitter was about it defensively. He's average. He's just an average player, to be honest. He doesn't do anything remarkable. He doesn't. He's not as attacking as Aït-Nouri, but then he's got far more breadth of experience than Aït-Nouri has. But you think for the future of the club, you'd think that we're probably just sitting down over the season and go, look, we've got other options going forward. We've got Johnny who can play both slots on the left and right. We've got, like I say, we've got Ryan Giles, who potentially the club might invest some time in. Obviously, we're not sure what's going to happen with Hoover yet, and then we've got Semedo. So we have options. So do we really want to keep? How old is he? 31? Is he
33?
33 now.
Okay.
Yeah, he's older. He's older than you think.
He's aged 2 years in 5 seconds.
You've been very complimentary to him there.
I know, yeah. Well, he looks quite youthful, to be honest. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be one that we look to, set aside any more money to spend on come the summer. So I think as much as him and his family seem to have enjoyed being here the last 2 years, I think that probably they will look to part ways with him in the summer. But he hasn't done anything massively wrong since he's been here. He's just not really been anything remarkable, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that succession plan feels like it's in place, doesn't it, with likes of Coady and Ryan Giles. But I'm sure we can all agree our abiding memory of Marcal when he wasn't on the treatment table was his approach to marking Ivan Toney on that corner at home to Brentford. So that we signed the death knell on Marcel's Wolves career. We'll move on to Romain Saiss and Rich. He's been a really key player for us this season. I mean, pretty much played as many minutes as anyone aside from being away from the African Cup of Nations. And even now at this point, Kilman was the one to be dropped for Bolly rather than Saiss. And clearly Bruno is a big fan and sees him as really important to the team.
Yeah, and I think Nuno did as well. And I've always been a big fan of him, but was a bit sceptical at his ability at Premier League level some of the time. And he's quietly converted himself into a centre-back 100%. I know even when we're playing in the Championship and he played in midfield, he was playing in that position at Morocco. But credit where credit due, he has continued to push for a place in this side over and over again. And again, I think what sort of springs to mind with a few of these players, we're going to mention Moutinho in a second as well, that between John Ruddy, Saiss and Moutinho, those are big players in the changing room.
You'd lose a lot of leadership.
But that's what I'm saying. And at the end of last season, I kind of mooted him potentially being moved on just if systems change and we went to a back four and things like that. But my caveat was he is a really influential guy in that team, and you can see, he's a bit of the emotive leader on the pitch in terms of his shithousery sometimes. And he's, we all remember his performances in the Championship where, he was an absolute warrior of a man. But in terms of him going in the summer, it's sort of his last chance for probably a big payday if he does go. And I think that might be appealing to him, if I'm being honest.
The one thing that I'd say about Saiss is I don't know who'd buy him, who'd be better than us, who'd take the chance on him, who would be in a better position than us.
I think if you talk about going back to France, there are a few options there for him, which say, I mean, at the moment you look at outside of PSG, Nice and Marseille were in the Champions League slots. A club like Nice, I would suggest, could do with, they haven't been in the Champions League for a very long time, if at all, from what I know. Good bit of experience, been playing at Premier League level for a number of years and done well now. That feels like a nice move for him as well. Competing in European competition at the highest level and potentially be able to make a nice name for himself there.
For sure. And if he did go, I will be sad because I'll always have the Middlesbrough memory where he was lying flat on his back, absolutely conked out. That was a fantastic away there.
Unbelievable play.
He's another one, isn't he? With he's a character on and off the pitch, well, especially off it, as we've seen, as the social media allows us to see. And again, he's another one that said that he's loved it here. He says if the weather was better, it'd be perfect, a place to come and live and play football. And every time you seem to doubt him, he comes back and puts a string of performances together. So I think it will be really interesting to see where they go with Saiss. I'm not actually sure of his age, to be honest, of how old he is. If
he's 31.
Don't go aging him at all.
I was going to say he turns 32 in about a week's time or something.
Well, you see that then.
Do you give him another year?
There's no long contract in the offering for him there because Ferguson obviously have resale value, at the back of their minds, or forefront of their minds probably. So would he accept a 1 year? I don't know. And so there's a crossroads with that one really, because for sentimental value, you wouldn't want to lose him because of what he's given to the club since he's been here. And don't forget, he had that really tricky first year, didn't he? When Lambert thought he was shit, basically, and wanted to sack him off.
Yeah, 200 appearances later. Yeah,
exactly. He's come back from that, and under some proper managers, he's excelled in both in midfield and defence. So, yeah, as Defoe said, it'd be a sad day when he goes. But I suppose at some point in time, you have to start looking forwards, don't you? You have to start thinking, okay, so this guy's 32.
The other thing I would throw into the mix is we're assuming we're operating with a back three at this point next season. I can still see a transition to a back four. And if you are keeping hold of players that aren't going to play, if there's one less space for a centre half to come and play in, we could be overloaded in that position. So it's not going to be a good sales pitch to say, look, we want to keep you, but there's going to be one less slot to pay for because we're going to be transitioning to a back four.
Weirdly enough, he could be fifth choice in that situation because you got Tony Gomez and Bolly would be ahead of him as he playing in it too. So it's not a good situation for him. I think you're probably right. I think a return to France would probably be a good idea for him.
There we go. Hopefully Jeff's watching and we've got it all sorted out for him. Final one, and this one's probably going to pull on the heartstrings the most, I imagine, but João Moutinho, who, again, today, really, really impressive performance, just total professional, got the job done in the only way that he knows how to. I mean, he's still scurrying around the pitch like a little, 21-year-old, isn't he? People talking about his legs gone and last season him going a bit off the ball. I just think everybody was shit last season. Yeah. Everyone dropped off.
There's a gas leak years, they'd say, in community.
So, again, totally lost on me, Rich. I really apologise. But I'll let you wax lyrical about João Moutinho.
You'll have watched Community, right?
Yeah. I got your reference story.
Cheers. Phew, that makes me feel better. I mean, oh my God. We'll take we'll have 5 after this, it'll be fine.
All right, but okay, fill me in.
With Moutinho, I almost want him to have that swan song back in Portugal in a way. I don't want him to go, but I still want him to have that end point to his career. But I don't want to lose him because he's still doing the business. It's just whether he's got another year in the tank, because the last thing you'd want for any great player, which he is, like not just as a great Wolves player, but he is a great European player for the last 10, 20 years. I don't want to see his career fizzle out. I want him to enjoy his football. So ideally, I'd like him to have another year with us and then go. and that'll make me feel be okay. I think.
There's a couple of things with this for me. So I said before that qualifying for Europe would mean that he stays with us for another year. I think anyway. Because if we don't, then he will potentially look to take that move back to Portugal. But Bruno said before that he trains like he's in his 20s. You know, he's full throttle in training. Bruno, in that interview, I think was it with the John Percy article, he says you have to tell him sometimes after 25 minutes to just calm down because he's, you know, you're 36 at the end of the day. So he still plays and feels like he is in his early 20s. So it kind of makes me think that he doesn't want to give up on being in the best league in the world just yet. Because as daft as it sounds, I think if he goes to Porto, for example, you know, just to for his last couple of years potentially, and he could be back in European football. As daft as it sounds, I don't think he'd actually start for Porto, whereas he's starting for Wolves now in the more competitive league. So, like at the minute, like Porto, I'm just looking now, like they've got Moutinho and Uribe in the middle. And I just think, I know they're in the Champions League and what have you, but I don't think Porto would buy or sign a 36, 37-year-old to start every game. I know he starts every game for us, but we didn't buy him as a 36, 37-year-old. We bought him we bought him before then, and he's played at a level for us where we don't drop him, essentially. I just think that for us, he's still integral to the team. He's not the future of the team, clearly, but I just think that when it comes to staying or going, if we do get into Europe, then I think he will stick around to see out a European campaign with us. If we finish 8th and we don't qualify, I think he'll then look to assess his options and say, well, yeah, for my last couple of years, I do wish to take in the European campaign again, and that will force him to look elsewhere. And obviously, with a heavy heart, that's another one where we'll probably have a week and morning when he goes as well.
Yeah. I think. I mean, that Moutinho looks all right. Maybe we should have a look at him. But I just don't think we're in a position to lose him. Like when you think about the numbers that we have in midfield right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm not.
It's what he said before as well. That this guy's got the mentality that you want in the dressing room. Someone who takes it as a personal. It's offensive to him to lose a game of football.
Yeah,
he takes actual offence to it. So
we're gonna get a João Moutinho Last Dance series, aren't we? One day. Imagine him sitting there giving it the whole Michael Jordan thing, where I took that personally.
You see him like next game just put like a passing masterclass.
Yeah. Just going through another midfield.
He's the guy that you want around just for mentality. He won't want to be reduced to the cheerleader role though. That's the thing that comes into it. He's not going to sit there and say, well, I'm not going to sit here and just teach the kids, help me teach the kids or younger players, or someone who took my spot in the team, help them get better. I want to play.
I mean,
36, 37.
I mean, you put the other hat on. If I was Bruno, I'd be wanting to keep him for a long time and think 3 or 4 years down the line and thinking, Moutinho is going to be a fantastic coach. Just get him involved in the back room, get him involved with the kids, and just get him, put that mentality that you say he's got, instill it into these players. Because that guy, like you say, he hates to lose. And if you can put that 1 ounce of that attitude into the young players that we've got, and they could turn the mentality around, that's like half the battle straight away for the rest of their career. Yeah, and they'll be forcing their way into the team, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that's what Wolves are thinking.
Yeah. So Jeff, if you are listening, that's a 1-year contract extension, please, if you don't mind.
So did we end that on Ruddy? Yes. Marcal, no. Saiss.
Leave it up to him.
Leave it up to him. I wouldn't want to tell him anything. I wouldn't want to give him an answer anyway. And Moutinho, please stay another year.
I think so. Yeah. Sounds reasonable.
I think that's fair.
Shall we wrap up with some Twitter corner questions, please, Rich?
Go on.
Just starting off with Nag, regular contributor. What's more annoying, the ref not giving a blatant penalty, context first half, about 25 minutes in, 0-0, or dishing out a dodgy red card, second half 3-0, less than 10 to play. I think this is in reference to the Wolves women. They had a good result today, didn't they? I think.
Yeah, they won 3-0.
Yeah, they won 3-0. I mean, I always think, I mean, regardless, I guess the referee's kind of mantra is to try and keep as many players on the pitch as possible, isn't it? And if a team's losing 3-0 or winning 3-0, what's the point in sending a player off late in the game? I just don't see what it achieves. Unless they've been absolutely, like they've gone to, decapitate someone. Like, what does it achieve?
Like that clip earlier, was it in the Thai league where someone's ran up and punched someone square in the face? That even if it's 3-0, you probably get a red card for that.
I thought Roberto Sanchez on Diaz for Liverpool. Yeah, that was.
Was it literally just because they scored? For mine, bubbles, doesn't it?
They kept it, and they still decided that it wasn't a red. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I think there was 2 in the Newcastle game today where the Havertz should have been sent off for an elbow, and then he went on to score, and then Newcastle had a stonewall penalty not given. It was absolute shocking refereeing standards again, and it's all they have the chance to go to VAR and they don't do it, and VAR tell them not to look, and it's like, what? Okay, the ref hasn't seen it initially, but why don't you go and tell them to look?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the point, 0-0. Really key part of a game. If you've got a penalty, is going to put you 1-0 up potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'd go penalty because the red card might be annoying, but you're already winning 3-0, so you can. I'd take that, even though it might penalise you in the next couple of games. But penalty opportunities. Few things hit harder than when you don't get a penalty that you feel you deserve.
As a slight segue on that, I'm talking about getting sent off and losing players next game. Back to Neves, he's making this. He's stringing out this 10th booking, isn't he? This 9th.
He is. He's doing well, isn't he? He's doing well. Like,
When's
honestly.
the cut? Is there a cut-off point?
Yeah, I think it's game 32 or something like that.
It's got to be in April.
It's not
far
away, isn't it?
Is that in
yeah,
April?
oh, mate. He's walked a tightrope there. If he completes that, fair play to him.
Because we're on 29, aren't we? So 3 more games. Oh, we'll take that.
Don't let him tackle. Just don't let him tackle.
Not allowed to tackle on the
that's
last
why.
one.
That's why Donk was playing.
And not allowed to speak to the referee as well.
Yeah. All right. Next up,
Dino, what is an acceptable time to leave work and start pre-match drinks on Friday before the Leeds game? I think it's 8:00 kickoff. Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, when we say leave work, it's a loose term if you're working from home these days, isn't it? I mean, you could potentially start on the cans during the afternoon session, sat at your laptop, couldn't you?
Have something pressed on the keypad so you can see that it's still busy.
Booking a couple of meetings as you do. So
just take your personal development hour early or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're all entitled to that. Your
well-being.
I mean, how long's a piece of string, Dean? You could honestly drag this out until Friday morning if you really wanted to.
I reckon 3 o'clock's the earliest you can potentially get away with it. Because
as in logging off, like total, or
it depends if you have. We're obviously assuming this is an office job. If you're in the factory manual labour job on Friday, they get out at midday.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So, but if you're a 9 to 5, if you're a 9 to 5er, 2 hours you can probably make that up over the course of a week. If you start thinking now, half an hour a day, extra Monday to Thursday, then you can in theory just cover yourself for an extra couple of hours. Job's a good one.
It's true. If you are on site, get to the game. Hive is hard hat, everything. Just stay out. Stay out.
Keep going.
Straight from work on the Thursday.
Yeah. It's just been hanging outside Molly for 24 hours.
Okay. At Davy Hop, are there any other teams other than Frank Lampard's Everton and Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa where you have to say the manager's name before you say the team name? I think this has been like a football cliches thing previously, hasn't it? I think.
One of the biggest springs to mind, doesn't it? Wayne Rooney's Derby.
Yeah.
But Derby have always had it now. So I think Frank Lampard's Derby was the original.
They did.
Yeah, that was the original. But I don't know.
Maybe Paolo Di Canio Swindon. It needs to have like it needs to be a big name.
with a small club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil
Small
Warnock,
club.
Sheffield United.
Me. Yeah.
Colin Wankers, Sheffield United, you mean?
Yeah. Sorry,
See,
Colin.
See, this question got me thinking: is what name would have to be matched to Wolves? Because it doesn't necessarily need to like be like a club link, does it? But
It's just Bruno largest bar in the army, isn't it?
yeah, just
think-
yeah.
I think Mick's probably the only one we could really do that with.
Mick McCarthy's Wolves.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only one I
That's
could think of.
Yeah.
Did we ever have it with Glenn Hoddle? Glenn Hoddle's Wolves? Because I'm thinking he come with a bit of high profile.
He did have a reputation, didn't he? I don't know. At the moment, yeah, it's got to be that big managerial personality with a slightly smaller club feel to it.
I reckon Glenn Hoddle's a good shout for Wolves. I don't know. I'm trying to think of any of us in the league.
Were we? No. He had Spurs and Southampton in between, didn't he?
I was trying to think of like returning players who's like been in charge of a club briefly, and all I could draw on them was Alan Shearer's Newcastle when like he was in charge briefly.
What a spell in time that was!
I know, yeah, that was dead.
That was
dark days.
Honestly, glorious.
It was honestly, it makes you feel so good that we've never appointed Steve Bull as our manager.
I remember a time though when like that was people really, really wanted that.
He's got so close to it.
Yeah. And he did really well at Stafford Rangers. Yeah.
The thing is, he's always in the bookies odds. If you have a look, his name's always there.
Always 33-1. It's like the classic. We've got to put it in there because we'll make some money. But yeah, our game was Stafford Rangers loss. I think on that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I reckon so.
Studios 10, who's your first choice centre backs? Obviously Coady, but I think Saiss hasn't been great since AFCON, and his distribution first half was awful. I mean, I wonder what this is with Saiss, because I've always kind of championed his passing from the back, but I think it's because he plays riskier passes that he sometimes looks like he's maybe not as sound with his distribution. Everybody else seems to play quite safely, but at the moment, I mean, Bolly was excellent against Watford, and Bruno's talked about against Palace, winning our duels. He's our most dominant centre half, bottom line. So
I'd be interested to see a back three of Kilman, Coady, Bolly.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I feel like that feels like it's got a lot in it. But again, Saiss is still just about justifying his place.
That feels like Cody's got his two bodyguards like either side of him, like protecting him.
I mean, when we were talking about Kenny and sort of putting in a couple of silly challenges, you can't do big tackles anymore. I just think Willy Bolly would have a thing to say about that, because in his first start in ages, he put in an absolute reducer through one of the Watford players.
Yeah,
clean as anything, but you heard it.
Yeah,
it was like a proper on back baby.
Good to see. It was good to see, because towards the back end of last season, he did drop off and he wasn't playing well. But yeah, still an absolute class act, and worth reminding ourselves of how good he's been for us. Colossus.
I think especially if he was to come into the team as well, he's someone who retains the aerial threat at corners and obviously in our own box. Yeah, and he's still when he's on it, as long as he can, the Bolly of what we remember, he's still been good on the ball. Still, actually, quite a good distributor of the ball as well. It's just a shame that obviously over the last 12 months or so, he's been a bit unreliable when it comes to injuries. Which up until that point, he was never present, wasn't he? But he got me thinking. Now that's a good back three: Kilman, Coady, and Bolly. I wouldn't mind seeing that for a few games. See how we get on with those three.
Absolutely. Any more, Rich?
Nah, it covers us.
That covers us very, very good. Well, thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gents. We will, of course, be back with you on Wednesday for a preview show of the Leeds fixture coming up on Friday night. And thereafter, obviously, make sure you tune in for the review of that game as well. We've got some more content coming out on YouTube for GTA as well this week. And make sure you follow us on all of the social channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Wolves Fancast. Everything is there for you to enjoy and interact with us. And if you really do want to give me pelters for my tweet, I really don't mind. But yeah, after all of that, and after that wonderful, wonderful win, that's all from me, Gully, and the boys, Jafo, Rich, and Adam. And we'll speak to you soon.